I've always seen the Stradavar as being an okay rifle, but in Warframe being just okay is simply not enough. Thankfully the Prime makes things a whole lot better, and today we're going to be diving deeper into this Mastery Rank 12 primary weapon. As always, my name is Leyzar, and I got a couple of builds laid out for you. Something cheap, something affordable that anybody can build, but of course we also have the classic endgame setup with a crazy Riven. That said though, please keep in mind that my builds and guides focus on a more new player friendly approach. Simply because there's a lot of info here and I want anybody watching to understand how the weapon functions and how it should be built. So in case you're a veteran and you already know most of this stuff, please bear with me. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the Stradavar Prime. First off, let's quickly check out how the weapon handles, then we're going to be jumping into a stat comparison with the regular version, because the Stradavar Prime saw some interesting buffs, but a couple of nerfs as well. You still get 2 fire modes, and in primary this is your basic assault rifle affair, decent accuracy and decent fire rate. Now if you switch to secondary fire mode through the use of your alternative fire, you can go semi shot by shot action and the weapon becomes a whole lot more accurate. Unfortunately, you gotta deal with the jumpy recoil and the fire rate is a tad on the sluggish side. Not only that, but the weapon consumes 2 ammo per shot, which is a tad kooky. It's not a burst shot. It's still a single bullet without any multi-shot, but it does consume 2 ammo, so it will cut your magazine capacity effectively in half. And once again, this was not the case with the regular Stradavar. Speaking of which, let's have a look at that stat comparison. We got much better accuracy, 25 and 66.7, which means that heavy caliber is viable if you want to play the weapon solely for secondary fire mode. Critical chance also got an increase, only 2% though, and only in secondary fire mode. And you will see a trend with the Stradavar Prime. They focused a lot more on secondary fire mode and less on primary fire mode. The huge buff, however, is the critical multiplier, 0.8x extra in secondary fire mode and 0.6 extra on primary fire mode. And for any critical weapon in the game, critical multiplier is how you get your damage. Link in the cards right now if you want to see a full demonstration on how critical chance and critical multipliers apply in Warframe. Fire rate remained the same on primary fire mode, but in secondary fire mode, curiously enough, it got a nerf, down to 3.33. Magazine is up to 90, so that's what, about a 40% increase, but if I factor in the fact that I'm consuming 2 bullets per shot on secondary fire mode, the magazine capacity is 45. Punch through was added to the weapon, but once again only in secondary fire mode, 1.0 meters worth of punch through, which is a pretty good buff. Reload is still the same at 2.0 seconds, and the status chance got an increase, 6% extra, and once again only on secondary fire mode. Now that is decent, and there is a damage increase, minor on primary fire mode and more major on secondary fire mode, not in terms of value but more in terms of order. You will see that slash and puncture interchanged positions, which means that the weapon deals primarily slash damage in secondary fire mode with a higher status chance. That means that our slash build will be seeing some tweaks here and there. Next, we're going to be jumping into a standard elemental setup, but before we talk about mods, if your mod capacity is only 60 out of 60, jump into actions and install the Auto King Catalyst. This one can be found from Nightwave or after dev streams. You can see it on alerts, invasions, and so on and so forth. You can also pay 20 plat to have one installed. For the weapon build, I'm recommending you guys 1 forma, maximum of 2 will be more than enough, because the Stradavar Prime comes with 3 default V symbols or Madurai, which is absolutely fantastic. It's not a forma heavy weapon. Now when it comes to elemental setups, you want to go for damage with serration and maybe heavy caliber. This again is entirely up to you. In case you're using selfish chroma, then I would drop damage mods altogether and focus more on elemental damage as much as you can, as flat as you can. Critical chance with point strike and vital sense, and of course multi-shot with split chamber and vigilante armaments, and these 4 would be more or less mandatory mods. What follows depends on your own circumstances. I know I preach this a whole lot, but I only do it because it's true. It depends where you're going, who you're fighting. For example, if you're up against the Grenier faction, then you might want to take into account corrosive damage and radiation damage because of the armor types the Grenier units have on. Corrosive from my point of view is a bit better because regardless of the enemy armor type, it will be reducing it on a status proc, so my subsequent shots will be dealing more and more damage. But if you're going down to Fortuna, then I would build Gas or Toxin against Corpus. If you're up against the Infested, I still recommend AoE weapons heavily modded into Heat, for example the Atomos or for example the Ignis Wraith. Now, there's a reason why I have 3 elementals on the weapon and I don't have something like Shred. Speaking of Shred, this is a fantastic idea for this weapon, simply because your fire rate in secondary fire mode is a tad too low. You're getting extra punch through and some extra fire rate, and if you have Prime Shred, go 100% for that one. I don't have it, so boo-hoo me. Take a look at the fire rate even with Shred on. 4.33, I'm not even reaching that 5.0 that the regular version has. That's the problem when your base is low as a number. If you go with percentage base increases, the increase will also be a tad on the low side. Now, why did I go with 3 elemental mods? It's because of the IPS rules in Warframe. Impact, Puncture, and Slash have a 4 times greater chance at proccing over elemental types such as Corrosive, Radiation, Heat, and so on and so forth. So my aim here was to get the Corrosive value higher than IPS times 4 so I can get more Corrosive procs than Impact, Puncture, and Slash on primary. Now I can manage this on primary fire mode, but I can't really do it on secondary fire mode without adding another 90 mod because the value of the Slash is simply too high. So we're going to be testing the weapon out like this on some corrupted heavy gunners level 120, and keep in mind that for this build this is the optimal use case scenario, simply because these guys have ferrite armor on and I have corrosive. First auto, then semi. And as you can see, the weapon is a whole lot better than before, but it's the new Prime, it was supposed to be better, so the performance is decent, but I can get something like this out of the Soma Prime as well, so let's switch to secondary fire mode and see how it handles. I'm gonna go for maximum fire rate, and as you can see, yes, the weapon can chomp through high level targets, and the punch through is working its magic. The performance for an elemental setup, for a cheap setup such as this, is decent at best, but of course we can do a whole lot better. But before I go, I want to give you an option to high voltage. I know that not everybody has it and not everybody wants to farm it. You can farm high voltage from the mission Elgar on the planet Eris. You gotta find all the free secret caches, then upon extraction, you got about a 5% chance of getting this one or Shell Shock. And make no mistake, you're gonna need both of them for your primary builds, but if you can't be arsed, if you don't want to buy it and so on and so forth, you can simply swap it out for something like Shred, maybe even more punch through with Metal Auger, or you can go for another 90 mod such as Stormbringer and make even more corrosive on the weapon. Now that the standard build is out of the way, let's talk about Slash options, because you can build this weapon for Slash in a number of different ways. We got our mandatory mods, now let's talk about Hunter Munitions, one of the most powerful primary mods in the game. 30% chance to apply a slash on critical hit. Never mind about the set bonus, that's irrelevant in this case. This is a super powerful mod and we can leverage the high critical chance of the weapon to make it into a slasher. Now that's one way to get slashes out of the Stradavar Prime, but you can also go through the weapon's innate status chance, especially on secondary fire mode, and the fact that slash is the highest. Or even better yet, you can double dip into slash sources. If you add 260-60 mod, increase that status chance of the weapon, and you're gonna be getting some slashes from the weapon slash value and some slashes from Hunter Munitions. Some of the best slash weapons out there can actually double dip into slash proc sources. So in this case, once again, most of them will be coming from Hunter Munitions and some of them will be coming through the weapon's innate slash value, which is why we built Viral Damage with Malignant Force and Rhyme Rounds, the 260-60 viral mods. Now, viral is a good idea on many slash weapons simply because on a status proc you'll be reducing the maximum health of your target to 50% for the duration of the viral effect. Now, sometimes that viral effect can slip off the target and you need to reshoot it. It's not exactly ideal, but most of the times it will be working fantastically well, because the beauty of viral is that you don't need 1000 procs like you need with corrosive in order for it to be good. And the final mod will be Argon Scope on headshot plus 135% critical chance when aiming for 9 seconds. Now this is an event only mod from the Acolyte event, and currently on the Trade Chat PC it's still kind of going for about 150, maybe even 200 plat. However, it is important to a slash build, a crit slash build, because if you want to proc Hunter Munitions, then you need a higher critical chance. Even with the buff from Argon Scope up, you're not going to 100% critical chance on primary, but you are going over it on secondary fire mode. If you don't have Argon Scope, go for something like Vigilante Armament. And this is the second build I'm going to be recommending to you guys. It doesn't have anything expensive outside of Argon Scope, and again, use Vigilante Armaments instead, but you will see a quite the noticeable drop in slash count on your targets. Once again, auto on right, and we're gonna go semi on the left. Of course, we're gonna be getting plenty of procs on the targets. I got my viral, I got my slash, and as you can see, the weapon is a whole lot more efficient like this. Yes, the Stradavar was a slasher before and it's still a slasher now. Now let's switch to Semi. You'll see that I only need just a couple of shots to completely annihilate one of these targets. The viral effect is there, and also the value of the bleeds are quite high thanks to the weapon's base damage and base critical multiplier, which is super high. One more? Why not? Now you can build a slash build in a number of different ways. What I do not recommend you guys doing is going through Fang Fusillade and anything like that. Guys, it's simply not worth it. Trust me, Fang Fusillade is only to be used when you have no other choice, when you really need that slash value to be higher on your weapon. Other than that, stay away from Fanged Fusillade. Now with that out of the way, we can also do a Riven setup. This is what you guys came here for, and the following Riven is what I like to call thank you very much for playing Warframe. Stradavar Krita Toxicities. We got critical chance, critical damage, toxin, and minus over 100% impact. And keep in mind that the Stradavar's Riven disposition got nerfed on launch because Tiberon Prime happened and all whatnot. Now with impact off the table, that means two things. The weapon does less damage, so it's a bad thing. No, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing because it takes it off the proc table. The weapon can no longer proc impact, which means it can proc something else. Something like slash, something like viral, something like whatever else I wanted to proc. Nobody really wants to proc impact. We're gonna be testing the weapon out like this. This is my own setup, and that's not my Riven, so don't hate on me. It's a loaner from a friend. I normally also use Amalgam Serration in my setups because, well, I think the trade-off is definitely worth it. We're gonna hit a target till about 50%, and of course, as before, the slashes will be dealing the damage. And if I go Semi, you'll see that just a couple of shots is more than enough to completely annihilate the 120 Corrupted Heavy Gunner. Take a look. Absolutely bloody beautiful. But the Riven is amazing. Honestly, it's on the level of my Gorgon Riven. It's hard to find Rivens as good as this. And you know what? Before the Prime was released, Stradavar Rivens were going for what? 20 plat? Not even 20 plat. Somewhere around those lines. And now they're a whole lot more expensive. The Stradavar Prime, however, is not the type of weapon that requires a Riven in order to be competitive. So you can go full on without a Riven. But for a slash build, you kinda need Argon Scope to get most out of it. And no, I don't even want to hear about critical delay. Not one goddamn word. Now, of course, this is not gun frame, it's Warframe, so let's have a quick look at some Warframe synergies, and you can use a whole lot of frames. For example, I can't aim, so you can use mag, you can use chroma for more damage, the most amount of damage, but my option is always for Lady Mirage Prime, for totally objective reasons. Now, that said, let's have a quick look at her Warframe buffs. You can use whatever aura you want, you can go for your energy siphon, you can go for your loot detector, but against Grenier, the best option would be corrosive projection, unless you guys are going ×4. If you're going ×4 with corrosive projection, then no longer build corrosive on your weapon. Go for slash, go for viral, go for heat, because most of the enemies will be having their health bars to red, which means that all of the armor is gone. Therefore, bonuses work differently. Another option would be Rifle Lamp with 27% extra damage, and once again, these are auras. ×4 is possible. Everybody will be receiving this benefit as long as they are within your affinity range. In all honesty, these don't make the most hugest increase in damage, but arcanes are a lot more impactful. You can go for Arcane Rage R3, farmable from the third Eidolon down on Cetus. 10% chance for plus 120% damage to primary weapons for 16 seconds, and the usual +1 Arcane Revive. Again, this is an on-headshot chance, so bear that one in mind. As for your second Arcane, you can go for Arcane Avenger and further increase that critical chance. It's not a bad idea, but in case you didn't use Shred or Prime Shred, then you might want to look into Arcane Acceleration, which is farmable from the second Eidolon down on Cetus, and it's a lot more cheaper than something like Avenger. On critical hit, which we do loads of, 20% chance for 60% fire rate to primary weapons for 6 seconds, and the usual +1 Arcane Revive. And this is the setup we're going to be testing next. We're going to be spawning in Corrupted Heavy Gunners, the same level 120, and we're also going to be unpausing the AI. And of course, Mirage's wonderful free ability for a massive damage increase, as well as her lovely clones. And of course, with the increased fire rate and everything, I'm going to be able to absolutely destroy high-level targets in just a matter of seconds. As you can see, that is pretty impressive. Then on the other hand, Mirage has that gift to make every weapon seem powerful. And don't worry, the Kraken review is probably going to come sometime this year, maybe next year, I'm not sure. How about Semi though? Let's see how Semi handles again these targets one by one. If I get the right proc, I can one-shot targets, of course. And of course, you can also one-shot them strictly by the damage the weapon deals. That's it, guys. That's the Stradavar review, and for my own 2 cents, the weapon is very powerful, but for my assault rifle of choice, I'm still gonna go with the T-Baron Prime. It's a bit more flexible, and to be honest, the performance of the Stradavar, while strong, it's simply not that strong. It still wouldn't make my top 10 primary list. And that's about it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. If you got any feedback for me, then by all means, drop it in the comment section down below. Also in the comment section down below if you want to suggest a particular weapon review. Now, in all honesty, I can't exactly guarantee you that it will be done by next time or even within a week, but I can promise you that I will be reading through each and every comment. You can also find me on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. Until next time, my friends. Bye-bye.